Okay, I think we will get started. Thank you so much for joining us today. We had a very robust conversation in May on what youth wish foster, adoptive, and kinship parents knew. So we're bringing back the conversation, just a little bit different angles. And so I'm glad you're here. I am Kim Hansel. I'm the editor of Fostering Families Today magazine, which is a bi-monthly magazine that is distributed 6 times a year. And it's filled with all sorts of good information for foster, adoptive, and kinship families to learn and grow in their parenting experience. So thank you so much for joining us today. You can find us in these various places and on our website at fosteringfamiliestoday.com. And if you guys have any questions about it, you can feel free to reach out to us via email or one of our social media platforms. So next slide. So we just wanted to mention quick that since our first conversation was such a resounding success, we are doing not only one follow-up, but 2. So we're having another one next week, which is going to be kind of flipping the script on the conversation, and it's going to be on what foster, adoptive, and kinship parents wish youth and advocates knew from their perspective. So Raquel, our youth voice program manager, will be leading that conversation, so definitely register for that. And Raquel, if you want to give us a little background on the youth voice program, that would be awesome.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to have you all here today. Just a little bit about the Youth Voice program, which is a wonderful sister program to Fostering Families Today. However, on the flip side, we dedicate our services to former foster youth, current foster youth, those who have been impacted by homelessness and juvenile justice. And we are currently placing a strong emphasis on LA County youth. So if you are a program out there interested in partnership, please reach out to me or drop your information in the chat. I think it's also important to note that I am also a former foster youth. So not only is this work intentionally valuable to me as I share my experiences and use my background story as a means to help others navigate through, the different difficulties that, come with being a former or current foster youth. Thank you, Kim, so much for having me here today, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So I'm going to just give a quick little introduction to our panelists. So if you guys would just kind of wave so people know who you are when I'm introducing you, that would be great. So you guys met Raquel. She's a former foster youth from Compton, California, who has been an advocate for youth affected by the foster care system, juvenile justice system, homelessness, and at risk. She has dedicated over 10 years to empowering youth and helping them develop personally and professionally, most recently as the Youth Voice Program Manager for Fostering Media Connections. She earned a master's degree in grant writing, management, and evaluations, and recently obtained an MBA in nonprofit management from Concordia University, which she's displaying nicely this morning. Previously, she served as a program manager of the Real to Real program through Better Youth, of which she is also a founding member. She also founded her own nonprofit dedicated to inspiring women of color in business and entrepreneurship called the Empower Her Project. Raquel plans to use her experiences from being in the system to help connect and build relationships with other systems experienced youth to encourage storytelling through journalism, training, empowerment, and creative expression. Thanks, Raquel. Raquel's mentor is Sid Stewart, who is joining us today. She is a published performance poet, actor, and filmmaker. Notably, Stewart was a featured poet in the documentary Hughes's Dream Harlem on BET's Lyric Cafe and starred in HBO's feature film Everyday People. Stewart has performed her work on various radio stations at community events for museums, colleges, and universities, including personal tributes to Cicely Tyson and Dr. Maya Angelou, who dubbed her a fine poet. She has produced events for teens and young adults for Los Angeles Unified School District, the cities of Los Angeles and New York. She has performed with her live band, notably at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, Rush Arts Gallery, and now regularly performs in New York, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas. Most recently, her work was selected by the National Endowment for the Arts 50th anniversary and for New York Stage and Filmmakers Fellowship. She is currently in development as a writer for a TV project with a major network, and she is a member of the service-oriented sorority Delta Sigma Theta and is the founding and executive director of Better Youth, Inc., a nonprofit organization that uses poetry and media arts to equip foster youth with creative confidence. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sid. Next, we have Alexis Black, who is a graduate of Western Michigan University and alumni of the CETA Scholars Program. She has served as National Youth and Transition Database Reviewer while also fundraising for programs that support foster youth, such as Nesoro and Hope Packages. She and her husband, Justin, recently published an award-winning best-selling book titled Redefining Normal, How Foster Kids Beat the Odds and Discovered Healing, Happiness, and Hope, which I read and reviewed in the magazine. It was a great book, so thanks so much for that, Alexis. With Rose, which is Rising Above Societal Expectations, Empowerment Group, and Redefining Normal, they hope to continue the conversation on healthy relationships, mental health, and healing. Thank you so much for joining us. Joining Alexis today is her former foster parents and lifetime supporters, Brian and Kim Switalski. They've been married for 22 years and have had many adventures together, including parenting biological, foster, and adoptive children of all ages. They also had a chance to influence and encourage many children and youth through volunteer and vocational church ministry. With Jesus as their model, they hope to continue to do all they have been called to do with more and more love and understanding each day. Thank you so much for joining us. And finally, our last group, we have Sean Lang, who came into care in 2012. Before coming to the Lang family, he was in 4 previous foster homes with his foster siblings. In 2018, his sister and brother decided they did not want to be adopted and asked the judge to be moved to a relative. Sean said he did not want to leave and was adopted by the Langs in January 2019. Stephanie and Christopher Lang have been fostering since 2014 and have parented 9 children. They adopted Sean in January 2018, which I think I have that wrong. It must be 2018. After he requested to make the relationship permanent. The Langs currently have 4 other children who have been in care with them for several years. The couple works to maintain relationships with all of their children's extended families. Stephanie is currently training to be a foster parent trainer in Calvert County, Maryland. So thank you all for being panelists with us today. I appreciate your sharing your lived experiences and your experiences parenting and mentoring children who have been in the foster care system. So I'm going to start off. I will keep these with their group. So it'll be the former foster youth and their mentor or caregivers. So I wanted to start off with Alexis and ask, how did you guys build trust early in your relationship?
Yeah, so I came from Kinship placement before I met Kim and Brian, and I was kicked out of that placement and moved in with them. And I think it really started from right when I moved in. They didn't change anything about who they are or the way that they live their life. And I learned pretty quickly that they are all about consistency in their words and their actions and who they are. And they didn't try to change or do anything differently necessarily for me moving in their home. So for me, that meant a lot. And then also, given the fact that I came from a history of abuse and sexual abuse and things, I didn't see necessarily Brian trying to, what's the word I'm saying, thinking of, like trying to overcompensate or try to either do that or to stay away from me completely. He really just tried to be open and honest and build a relationship with me. And I think it was like the second or third night, he took me out to dinner, just him and I, and we got to talk. So that meant a lot to me that he was, this is his, his personality. He's pretty forthcoming and straightforward. So I appreciated that about him, and that we could have open and honest communication all around.
Awesome. So Kim and Brian, what were some things that you guys do, especially with Alexis specifically? How did you build that trust in your relationship?
Well, I think Alexis mentioned it, that, we just really try to be honest with everybody and very open. Also giving space, especially for a new placement, so that they feel comfortable and not demanding too much too quickly. Having some basic expectations, but also, especially with youth, inviting them to join us for dinner, inviting them to join us to go places, but not making them feel bad for not coming.
Awesome. Raquel, how yours and Sid's relationship is a mentorship relationship. So how did you guys build trust early in that relationship?
I wouldn't say that I didn't trust Miss Stewart when I first met her. I just think that it was hard for me to cultivate positive relationships that I believed could be long lasting. I was like in all of these different situations where you meet people who say they love you and then they disappear, or as soon as you get an attitude, they disappear. And when Miss Stewart, she grabbed me and she hugged me and she told me she loved me, and that made all the difference. So I wouldn't necessarily say it wasn't trust. It was just her reassuring that she wasn't going anywhere, and that she was always going to be here. And despite what my behaviors or how I was acting out at the time, that she was going to still go along for the ride. And I appreciate her for that.
Sid?
Wow, Raquel, thank you for saying that. Acting out is an understatement. I think that when I met Raquel, she was 17 at her high school. And as African American women, we have to find something to connect. And for us, it's hair. So I remember taking Raquel to get her hair done for the first time, to kind of build trust outside of the school environment, because I was part of, an after school program. She might have viewed me as administration, and, all of that has just a different perspective. So I tried to get her into a space where we could connect in a real way. And I remember saying, hey, can I take you to, the stylist, and, maybe we can bond that way. And so for me, it was kind of just demonstrating that I was just a regular person, just like her, like a, older version of, her. And I saw so much potential in her, and I saw myself in her, the struggles and all that she was dealing with. But I also saw a diamond in the rough, and I wanted to just let her know that I would be there and I would be consistent, but that we could bond in a way that was authentic.
Awesome. Thank you. Sean, what was it for you with Stephanie and Christopher that helped build that relationship?
Like being able to state what I wanted and like what I don't want, and then being open to it and accepting me for like what I am, and then not setting boundaries to what I have to like setting boundaries to what I have to be, and then I can be open.
Stephanie, Christopher, what are your thoughts on how you guys were building that in your early relationship?
Because we knew that he had been in 4 previous homes, but didn't know why at that point he had jumped around so much. It was really just being open and honest with him, when he came, saying, if there's a problem with us or somebody else in the house, just come and tell us, just come and talk to us, be open and honest. That way we can try to, avoid, hopefully, again, not knowing at the time what the issues were, avoid bouncing around, and letting them know up front that, we were in this for the long haul. At that point, we didn't know exactly if it was going to be long term, care, or if it was going to lead to guardianship or adoption. But just letting him know from the beginning, we were in this for the long haul. We weren't, they weren't going to get rid of us that easily.
So I think from all of you, I'm hearing, just that open and honest communication and being seen and heard were really important things as you guys built that relationship. So thanks for sharing all of that. As time goes on, I know a lot of times, foster families talk about the honeymoon period where things, are kind of nice and easy as you get to know each other, and then some things sometimes crop up. So I would love to start with Raquel and Sid and hear kind of what you guys, were there some challenges that popped up in your relationship, and how did you guys navigate those?
We definitely had some challenges, and not because of anything that Miss Stewart did, but a lot of me like just being angry and just acting out. And I think like what the most thing was is that nobody never really asked me why I was angry or why I was mad, or like, they just kind of assumed that I was just like, just misbehaving because of my situation. And it just really, like, that's one of the things that really bothered me still, like to this day, because I was really going through a lot of stuff. I was living in homes that were abusive. I felt like I had social workers that didn't care. And so with Miss Stewart, I feel like that, that she cared, and despite like, because I acted out, like one of these occasions, like when I was getting ready to just graduate, I got accepted into the Usher Raymond program. They flew us to Atlanta. And when I tell you guys I acted up, I acted up. Like I acted up. I was outside of my element. I was around other kids. I didn't understand that they probably was going through stuff, and I acted out, and I embarrassed myself. I embarrassed Miss Stewart. The next year I wasn't welcome back. And then I got invited back after they seen my growth. And that's one of the stories that me and Miss Stewart, we tell, what we share and we laugh about, because it's like, from me to have came from like this place of anger, this place of abandonment, this place of feeling like nobody loved me, and to have like other Black women especially, just like grab me like, girl, somebody love you and you gonna get this love. It made a difference, especially coming from them situations where it's like you don't know who to trust. When you trust people, they hurt you, or it's like some monetary type of value that is attached to it. And with Miss Stewart, it was no strings attached. It was like, here, I'm spending my real money. I'm taking my real time out. I could be chilling. I'm coming up to Jordan every day, 5 days a week. I'm spending my Saturdays with you, my love. Like, what's happening? Why are you doing this to me? Like, and I feel like through like me and Miss Stewart's relationship, I learned a valuable lesson about not burning my bridges. Because some people that I wish former foster parents, former school advocates and counselors, I wish I could go back and show them and tell them sorry, for some of the things and the ways that I acted. But it was only because of, the trauma that I was suffering from, and me not being able to navigate through it and not knowing how to navigate through it. And simply because there were adults around me that, was assuming what I was angry about. And instead of just saying, baby, what's wrong? Like, what's happening? What's going on with you? Why are you tripping? Like, what's going on? And then that would have left room for an open conversation. Like, hey, I'm living in this home. This person is doing this, so yeah.
And what are your thoughts kind of on what Raquel shares?
That was one of the challenges, I think. Again, just seeing the potential in a young person, seeing what they can be and not who they are in the moment. Being able to see them for them is really important. But I think, yeah, Raquel, yeah, you acted the fool, like the hot fool. But I think it's the point where our relationship developed, because I said, oh, no, we're not going to do this. Pack your things, get your stuff, and we're going back to LA. And because of that, everybody's going back. And, I think I could see Raquel's heart, what bruised or whatever. She was still a rose. She had a lot of thorns, but I saw her as a rose. And I knew that, love is corrective, but it endures all things. The word of God says it endures all things. And so when you love a young person, it's for the journey, not the destination. You may not know where you're going, but you have to wrap that young person up with that love and walk with them through the challenges. And that was a challenge, but I knew who she was. And like she said, you got to pull them close and correct them, like a mama bear would. And I think, it's like, no, I love you, but this is wrong. And you're going to do right. And I'm going to show you what's right. And what you didn't say, Raquel, is that you wrote a letter of apology, remember? Right? You took responsibility for your actions, which is important. And we ended up staying. Okay. And I know before you got there, you rode a bus for 2 hours just to get to the interview at USC. Right. So I knew how badly you wanted this. And taking a young person out of their element, exposing them to new things can trigger, either negatively or positively. It was so large. And, this is the girl that said, what is Usher going to do for me? Is he going to be there? I said, okay, just come to CAA and we'll see. Here comes Usher out of the door and her mouth dropped like, I can't believe this. And Raquel is dynamic, and everybody recognizes light. You can't deny the sun when it's shining. And Raquel is the sunlight. But I think, love endures all things. It's kind, it's patient, and it's the ingredient that our young people need in order to be successful. And so she was invited back. She flew all over the country and became a mogul in training. And therefore that challenge was worth it.
Awesome. I was going to jump to Sean and ask kind of what some challenges were from your perspective when you guys started building that relationship.
Honesty. I was in 4 previous homes that weren't very fond. They weren't very fun. They weren't very nice or accepting. They were trying to deliberately change us into different people. And we just wanted out. So coming here was relieving because it was open and honest. And I was also with a brother and a sister, and they were very oppressive of me. I didn't really have a say in things. They always put me out, so their voices were higher than mine for what they wanted. And before I almost left here instead of being adopted because of their voices carrying me with them. And then I eventually stood up to myself.
Gotcha. So how did you guys help him with that challenge? Because that had to be a tough dynamic, with siblings and helping him find his voice.
It was very obvious early on that the oldest sibling, she was the speaker of all of them. These little kind of secret side meetings. So in the beginning, it was hard because they've just had, the 3 of them for 4 years. So I understand why they had this tight bond and kind of wanted to exclude us. But she was always the one to say, this one wants this one wants that. And then we kind of started to notice he would kind of pull us to the side. Well, no, that's not really what I want. And then after a couple of years, at some point, the oldest decided she didn't want to be in the house anymore. She wanted more freedom. And at the time when we went to court, they would take all 3 kids together, and she spoke up for him. And when we found out that she had said all of us want to leave, we pulled him to the side because we knew he felt a little bit different and said, is this what you want? And he said, no, but that's what she told me, that we had to do. And I said, no, it's not, you can speak up. What do you want to do? If you want to go with them, if that's your path, that's fine. He's like, no, I don't want to leave. I want to stay here with you guys. So it was, kind of teaching him to speak up for himself and tell, the workers and the judges and everybody involved kind of what he wanted.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Alexis, what was it for you guys? What were some challenges that you guys navigated?
I think honestly that we didn't have as many as we would have. I think if I would have moved in sooner. I moved in at 17, about to age out at 18, and I just really wanted stability more than anything, and I was willing to do anything I possibly could to make sure that it was, it was that stable environment where I wasn't doing much of, acting out or breaking the rules. Like Kim was in our first meeting, she handed me a sheet and said, "These are the rules." And I was like, I can do that. Like, I will do anything to stay here. Just please give me like a good loving home to be in, especially as I age out and transition into college. And I think that that's exactly what they gave. Not to say that, I wasn't necessarily doing things behind their back that I know I shouldn't have been doing, and they know about it now, like sneaking out and other things like that I think, teenagers do. But I think generally it was a smooth transition, like moving into their house and staying there for the couple months that I did before I aged out and they moved away. But then continuing to stay in contact as, they moved a couple of hours away, but I wanted to maintain that relationship, especially over holidays and breaks and things like that, up until 8 years later when I got adopted.
Kim, what do you see that same kind of thought that Alexis is sharing, or were there some things that come to your mind?
Yeah, I think that for us, that was the challenge. Was unfortunately when we were called by our caseworker to say, "Hey, can you please take Alexis? It's a great match, it'll work." And we were like, "Yeah, but we're probably moving this year in the next 6 months. So it would, I don't know if it could be a permanent thing." So, but she just said, "Just, give it a chance." So, and we love her still. We just talked to her recently, but so yeah, within about a couple months of Alexis staying with us, it was great. It was wonderful. I remember having lots of really good conversations and things working out. We had to move. We were going to move for a job from the Detroit area over to Kalamazoo. So that was kind of the hiccup in the situation. But I believe that Alexis was meant to be our daughter. And so we started looking for people that she could stay with using the semi-independent living situation. So that's a little different than foster care, but so we started talking to friends, and several people were interested, but then my parents spoke up, which was a surprise to us because they were hesitant about us getting into foster care to begin with. But you know what? They loved Alexis. They thought she was amazing and wonderful. And so that's where Alexis went. And so she stayed in our family. And so fortunately, we were able to keep that connection. And, Alexis still has that relationship with her grandparents, is what they are in her life now. So that's kind of a cool thing that worked out. And I believe God brought us together, and, that there's so many things that point to that she was meant to be our daughter. And even through challenges, we persisted. And I'll agree with you, Sid. I just feel like, seeing what's best in a child and what they can be, that's the key, and loving them through the challenges, because obviously we all have our days that are rough, even as mature adults. And so just kind of with love, seeing them through grace and truth, and just loving them. And that's the key. And so but honestly, like Alexis said, she was a pretty easy kid. We had come off a different placement that was very challenging, and that's why I handed her a set of rules when I first met her. But I think that the key is, again, just putting your best foot forward and loving on them, and it all works out.
I appreciate what I'm hearing all of you say. I just finished reading Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah's book, What Happened to You? And that's what I'm hearing over and over you guys saying, is asking the question, what happened to you, instead of why are you doing this? Why are you being obnoxious? And just trying to figure out what's driving some of those things, and loving them through them, because they're not doing it, on purpose. They're doing it because of what happened to them. So I think that's awesome. We have a request to hear from some of the dads. So I'm going to bounce this next question over to Sean and Christopher. What was something surprising that you learned from the other person?
Well, he was a first boy. I've had all girls and biological girls and all the other girls, the foster we have right now, they're all girls. So he's the first boy I've had. So that's the big thing, trying to figure out how to be a dad with a boy.
Them, or both of them, they never like were okay with us like trying to leave. So my previous foster homes, when we would leave, they would sign the papers, let us go. Even though my brother and sister left, they still fought for both of them to stay, but the department was doing things behind their back that they didn't know of. So that was something I learned, and that they were loving of someone that wasn't biological to them.
Awesome. Alexis, how about for you guys? What did you guys learn from each other?
Oh man, we wrote our book, and a lot of it was from what I learned from Kim and Brian. You can see it right there, Redefining Normal. And in the book, halfway through it, it's called Turning Point. And that was basically the moment where I moved in with Kim and Brian, and I was introduced to a new way of living, completely new lifestyle, thought processes, like literally everything changed about me. I became a Christian, and all of these things really just kind of sparked from my relationship with them, and taken from such an unhealthy environment and put into a good solid one, even if it was for 6 months. And I want to say that, I don't remember it being told that it was 6 months. I am sure like it was a survival thing where I completely left that out in my brain, because then when they told me they were moving, I was devastated. But they swear that they told me and I'm sure they did. But even now I'm constantly learning things from them. And Brian came over for 3 days and literally helped us. We bought our first house, my husband and I, who's also a former foster youth. And Brian came over for literally 3 days and helped us like do things all over the house that like dads do, that I'm like, we have no idea what we're doing. So constantly just learning from them and who they are.
Yeah, Brian had to step out. I hope he comes back.
That's okay.
He'll come back. And just to add to it, the things that Alexis and Justin learned from us were things that we just, I think, took for granted, that were just normal things. Like Brian and we don't fight. If we do, it's quietly and not around kids. And I don't think that was an environment that Alexis was used to. When I think something that Alexis talks about a lot, and I've also noticed with other foster kids, is like food is important. Food is important to people. And so when she came to our house, I told her, hey, if there's something you want me to pick up at the grocery store for you, just write it down on the whiteboard or whatever. And that was like a big deal for her, that I would allow her to do that. And to me, that's just a normal thing. And I think that's, kind of where their book, Redefining Normal, comes from, is like just living in a sort of healthy environment. There's no perfect healthy family, right? But a more healthy family, just living in it for a little while, it like opens your eyes to, oh, this is what life can be. And it can be good. And it doesn't have to be quite so challenging and hard and difficult. And yes, we all run into challenges, but we can work through them together and we can talk about them. I think that's a big thing I talk a lot about to people, is how important it is just to sit down and talk, just to sit down and talk. And if you're feeling hurt or bothered or irritated, give yourself some time and then just sit down and talk with people and try to be honest with them. So those are things that I just always felt that were just normal things that people just do. But a lot of kids in care, those aren't normal. And so definitely not feeling like any kind of savior, but realizing that just a lot of love and care and honesty goes a long way.
Right. Yeah, for sure. how about Raquel and Sid? What was something that you learned from the other person?
I think what I learned from Miss Stewart is that, you know, like that, it's okay to let go. I think when I met Miss Stewart, I was in like this weird space where it was like my mom was still doing like, you know, mean stuff to me, and I still was like still trying to be like the best daughter, and still like trying to attach to her. And I feel like when I started meeting like Miss Stewart and my other mentor, Miss Johnson and Kizzy, that you know, it let me know that it was okay to let go of my mom, because you know that hurt that I was experiencing with that, it was causing me to lash out on other people who could have been like mother like figures, and you know really could have taught me stuff, and really, you know, show me love, and really, you know, show me that it's okay to like, you know, be hurt and, you know, express yourself. I think that, you know, it's easy to say like, you know, just talk and, you know, tell us what's going on. But, you know, when you go through so much trauma and you had so many disappointments and so many people, you know, you share your experiences with, and then they turn around and either not believe you or gaslight you, or, you know, try to belittle the experience to make it seem small when it mattered to you. Um, you know, I think it means a lot. And so like with Miss Stewart, she showed me that growth was okay. Like it's okay to grow up. It's okay to, you know, love from a passionate place. I think like a lot of I try not to be like an angry Black woman, but I feel like, you know, I'm so passionate because of the things and the experiences that I had, that it's hard for me not to have this like assertive attitude, because there was a time where I couldn't share what I was going through because, you know, either somebody told me I was lying or they didn't believe me. So I had to stay in those situations. Like nobody was saving me, like, you know, and literally I was acting out because that's all I wanted was to be saved, like, you know. And so like with Miss Stewart, I wouldn't necessarily say like she saved me, but she definitely played a part in me being the woman that I am, being able to express myself, being able to love other Black women, other women in general, being able to see another young lady and be like, hey, love, like, let me put some love on you. Cause I feel like that was the energy. She was leading by example, like, you know, and that was what I liked. Cause so many people were like, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. My mom, church going lady, every day we pulling up in the church, she playing gospel music. As soon as we hit the corner, here come rap music coming on, Tupac playing. It's like, you know, it was the audacity for me. And Miss Stewart, she didn't necessarily have no audacity. Like what you got was what you got. And it just took me some growing up to do to be able to accept that love and realize that it could be long-standing. And here we are. She's literally watching me like, you know, excel through like some of the tough years of my life. She's been here through high school, through college, when I got my first master's degree, when I got my second master's degree, and she never stopped rooting for me. And I love you, Miss Stewart, for that. Like I love you for that. And I'm not afraid to be emotional because I think that that is needed. Like, you know, it's so many conversations that you hear from people with their bad experiences. And I think it's beautiful to share the good experiences. Like Miss Stewart, she was an angel.
Hmm. Wow.
Before you talk, Sid, I just want to say we need to have a disclaimer that Kleenexes are required to watch some of our our webinars. And I mean, I think that just speaks to like the depth of, you know, what these youth experience, because they come out in all these conversations. Even when we're talking about the happy stuff, you know, those emotions just get you. So thanks, Raquel, for being so raw and sharing that. But Sid, what did you want to add to that?
I think what I learned from Raquel is that, you know, what she may have seen as anger and this energy, it was passion. You know what passion looks like, and kind of redefining how to redefine a narrative. Um, I learned so much about what resilience looks like through all the things that Raquel had experienced. She never gave up. You know, there was always this fire that just kept going, kept going, kept going. And what I want to say to you, Raquel, is you saved you, like you saved you. And I think when you give young people the tools to advocate for themselves, to love themselves, when you give them an example of what love looks like, they can embrace it for themselves. There's a saying that if you if you keep fishing and cook the food, they'll always be hungry, right? But if you teach them how to fish, right, they become chefs and then they can feed others. So with Raquel, there was just this extraordinary passion that I recognized. I recognized that because I have it. I'm emotional, and all those things and artistic. And I learned she was a poet. Then it all made sense. I'm a poet, and like she was in this class doing a community-based organization at school. And I've known them forever. And I went to the class and Raquel's in there. I didn't know you were a poet. I didn't know you were a writer, and learning, about her and then taking what you know and helping them to channel and transform that energy, right? From anger to passion, right? From problem to poet, right? Like if you're gonna stir up the world, stir it up, Raquel, but um, communicate, use your voice, talk about it because your experience is valid and valuable. And I think, working with foster youth specifically, when it comes to work ethic or anything that requires something getting done, please give me some foster youth because we're going to get it done. This girl gets it done. And she came and managed the festival in 2018, was it? Real to Real Festival. She was fantastic. She had all these skill sets and APIs and all the KPIs and all this stuff she had learned from school and was bringing it to the organization. And really, she had a chance to give back. I think it's good when a young person can give back in the way that they want to in order to help you. And at the time, I was going through a lot, and Raquel just came in and just held us up. And, you know, we believe in omnidirectional mentorship, right? Like we learn from each other. Like we're all journeying through life. We got to help prop each other up on our leaning side. And I don't have all the answers. I'm not perfect. This is the best that I can do. But I think when you reveal your humanity to young people and you show them, man, this is what it is, and it's okay to be human. And I cry and I'm passionate and I make mistakes. But I learned from Raquel resilience, and what that looks like and what it can do in her life and the life of others.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, both of you. I know we're getting a little tight on time. So the one I want to kind of combine a little bit is advocacy. So for the youth, how did your foster parents advocate for you? What did that look like? And for the parents and mentors, how did you advocate for youth? How do you do that? How do you make that part of your practice? Can we start with Alexis?
Yeah, sure. So I think given the fact that I entered their home about 17 or 18, like I had a lot of those self-advocacy skills sort of figured out, partly from being in survival mode and partly because I'm hard-headed and I don't take no for an answer. And they know that. But Kim is incredibly resourceful, and that helped me a lot with understanding different resources that were out there and available to me and teaching me how to look for things. And mainly one of the biggest things that they taught me was the power of community and building your network and watching them through their church community and their neighborhood. Like even now as business owners in trying to figure out how do we build our network? How do we do these things? I think I need to get a bracelet one day that says, what would Kim do? And because I'm like Justin and my husband were constantly like, what would Kim do? What would Kim do? Because we try to channel that and think about, their skills and different things that they do and how they are. And that falls into the advocacy piece. And Kim is not shy to have conversations with any and everyone, especially if it's on behalf of someone to improve their lives. And quick narrative is my husband, he was attacked when he was 13 and he lost 4 of his teeth, and he was about to lose several more, and he told Kim about it, and he's never shared it with anybody until he shared it with myself, and then he shared it with Kim. And Kim had worked previously with a youth who had dental issues and put us in connection with them. And she was willing to, you know, help Justin with his letter and all the connections and everything. But all she had to do was make that connection, and Justin took it to the next step. And they paid over $20,000 for him to get his teeth fixed. But we've never heard of this organization. We drove literally to Canada, to Detroit, all over the place, trying to find people who would be willing to help us, because he was about to lose his teeth. But Kim reached out and literally just gave us that connection. And a lot of times that's what we need is, as Raquel had mentioned, you know, sometimes we literally just need people to channel our energy and channel our skills and different things that we have. And that is exactly what Ms. Stewart and Kim has done in our lives.
Kim's thoughts are, and Brian, or yeah, on what you guys do to advocate for the kids in your home.
I guess it helps to have resources, but just being willing to talk to people and do what you would want to do for your kids. And I've got to give props to God, because what are the chances that I would have just worked with a youth that had dental issues with an organization that would provide thousands of dollars, and then turn around and meet and Justin, who needs this? And so that is not me. That is a God thing, and that's how I see it. So I think prayer is a powerful thing that we should utilize as much as we can. Whether you're a believer or not, give it a try. I don't know if Brian, you want to add anything?
Well, what I saw, this was over 10 years ago. You know, Alexis came to us right before her senior year. And again, another just God thing. Kim and Alexis actually went to the same high school, 20 some years apart. But so there was all these connections. And I remember the conversation that I always remember is Alexis wasn't really sure what's going to happen her senior year. And just being there and being a resource. She could drive our car to school, which was 30 minutes away, and just having that option to continue her to finish her senior year where she wanted to, even though we live 30 minutes away from the high school. And then Kim, because I was working, Kim specifically asking, well, what do you want to do in life? Where do you want to go? And continuing to support and ask the question, not just simply look at, well, this girl's only here for a year with us and then she's gone. You know, it's a commitment. Whenever you're a foster parent, it's yeah, you might only have them for 2 weeks, but you don't know the lifelong commitment that you're making to them, even if you have them just for 2 weeks.
That's really beautiful. So how about Sean? How about you? What have they advocated for you? What does advocacy look like for you guys?
Giving me like a more powerful, stronger voice for saying and things. So like in the court or in the system in general, they would promote my voice and give me a say in things that I wanted.
Stephanie, Christopher, anything you want to add to that?
A lot, and most of our foster kids have been younger. So for them, it was really asking the kids, you know, what do you want? You know, we've had some kids that were several years, and some of the girls, you know, yes, I would love to adopt them. But I asked them, what is it that you want? You know, so if it is to go back to a parent or a guardian, providing it safe, you know, we try to work with the family. There's some bio parents we've taken on vacation with us because we really want to try to keep that connection. And sometimes, you know, it takes a bio parent maybe seeing, you know, that somebody else is supporting them, you know, being the foster parent, sometimes we're pegged as the bad people. So we have great relationships, but it's really just speaking up and asking the kids, what do you want? Giving them a voice is a big thing in our house.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's huge, to be willing to put aside what your needs are and to see what's best for the kids in your home and work on those biological family relationships and everything. So super important. Raquel and Sid, how about you guys on the advocacy front?
I think that Miss Stewart providing like a platform with real to real for us to like share our experiences, giving us a voice. I remember there used to be times she used to be like, "Oh, they doing poetry. Raquel know how to do poetry. Raquel, stand up here and do this poetry." It's like putting me in front on Front Street so that like I build my communication, putting me in situations where it's like I have to learn how to control my face and learn how to express myself. In a way. And it's something that I'm still working on, that I definitely could be better at. But I just think that like her providing me with the voice, like when I came to her about like me wanting to do like this brunch, she's like, how can you turn it into a business? How can you promote minority women all around the world? How can you get all women in the room? And I was just like, remembering sending her stuff and just like everything. So it was just like Brian and Kim said, like the commitment doesn't stop. It's like, that's really what it really be like. I wonder how many foster parents know that like they were so good to me, and had they still just held on to me or just like took that initiative to reach out, or just like even when I became like an adult and emancipated from the system, that they still checked on me. Like I remember I was in college and I didn't talk to Miss Store for like a while, but I had reached out to her because I had needed help, and she's like, I'm gonna help you, but what we're not about to do is just be thinking that you're about to just be reaching out to me when you need help. You need to be checking in with me. I want to see those grades. I want to know how you're doing. What are you doing with yourself? You moving back to LA? That's good because I have this program. We need help. What's up? Come, like, So it was just like she always was like just advocating for me in a way where she like provided this space for me to be like myself, and like nonetheless, regardless of like the behavioral, like and me acting out, like Miss Stewart always accepted me for who I was. Like she saw who I am now. She saw that when I was 17. And like the potential, like she speaks a lot about my potential because I didn't know I had potential, because so many people was telling me that I wasn't going to do this, or that I was going to end up like my mom, or because I was in foster care that this was the destiny, that was like this destiny or this path was dedicated to me. And that's why I hate the term survivor, because I'm not a survivor. I was a young lady that was in the system, and I made it just like a regular human being, just like a regular human person navigating through life. It's just that I had more people, in my life as caregivers than, active parent would have been, and so, I appreciate Ms. Stewart because, she just always was like that active parent that I needed, like, and I didn't have, like, and like, I say this a lot, there's people that I love more than my mom. And it's crazy because, it's, your mom, I had my mom on this pedestal and she was just so mean to me. Like, I used to like think my mom hated me because I was dark skinned and she was the same color as me. So it's like in my mind, like it was just so like constructed and just like based off of this like fallacy that people was putting in my head that I wasn't going to be able to do something. And Miss Stewart was always that person there, like, all right, you got an attitude problem, but you still gonna make it. You got an attitude problem, but you're gonna get that school stuff done, like, and I appreciate her for that.
Sid, how about you on the advocacy front?
Yeah, these young people are so powerful, Alexis, so powerful. Yeah, I think I just serve as a conduit. I think my friend Tanya's here, but a conduit of love and just a resource broker with a bullhorn. I think that's what I am in terms of an advocate. I believe wholeheartedly in God. I don't know how you would function in this work, Kim and Brian, without him. But I think, just being an example, like Raquel said, for those who read the Bible, there's about 66 books there, but the 67th book is you. And young people will read you before they read the Word of God or they read anything because they feel they need to know you're the truth, walking it out. But I think in terms of advocacy, it's just being an example, being a resource broker, being creating opportunities for them, and being a bullhorn for them, advocating for them, but also teaching them how to advocate for themselves, so that when you pass the bullhorn, their voice can be amplified, and they can pass that bullhorn down the line Alexis, to Sean, and to everybody else that needs to advocate for themselves. Because when I'm not here, Raquel still has to go on. You know, she still has to advocate. And when you teach a child in the way they should go, they'll not depart from it. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And to teach them what they need to know, and then they can depend on themselves. So.
For sure. We're going to go over just a little bit. I know we have a few questions that we want to get to, so if you guys can hang in there, that would be awesome. Here is, so one question I have is, someone would like to know how you navigated some of the uncomfortable conversations, you know, sex, healthy relationships, you know, trauma. How did you guys navigate some of those tough conversations? So I'll let whoever jump in that wants to.
You guys want to go first?
I can go. I actually shared an experience with Miss Stewart that I went through in terms of like that could have been like borderline sexual abusive. When I told her the thing that moved me was that not only she asked me, was I okay? Was like, what she was like disgusted, like, you know, and like in disbelief. And like to me, that was something different that I hadn't seen, because I actually, you know, have had many situations where I had shared with like a social worker or like a wraparound, you know, personnel that was supposed to be mentoring me. And, you know, nothing was done. And I still was like in those placements, in those homes. You know, and so I think that with Miss Stewart, it was like, it came like a time where it was like, I felt comfortable enough to be like, hey, this was what I had experienced. And she was okay and made me feel comfortable with asking me, was I okay? And moving forward. And she believed me. And so that made all the difference.
Alexis, did you have something you wanted to add to?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think just the way that Kim really is, I don't know, a phenomenal listener, and she's always the person I go to for unbiased, objective advice about any and everything. And I know that she's not gonna judge me in the process. Like I may have mentioned this earlier, but I was in an 8-year abusive relationship, and she could have said, you know, stop calling me, stop talking to me about this, I don't want to hear about it. But she was there every time, and she would, you know, she would be there and listen to me and let me know that I love you no matter what happens. But you do deserve better. And like being that person always there, but I had to make that decision for myself that I deserve better. And she couldn't do that for me. And I think that a lot of people have misguided advice around, you know, how to handle those situations. But she just being there and loving on me, that's how we sort of handled a lot of those situations and discussions. And I saw her as a mother figure, so I felt open and willing to have uncomfortable conversations. And when we wrote our book, there were, you know, the book is pretty intense sometimes, and it felt like publishing our diary. And she was the first person I wanted to read it before I put it out to the world. As you know, you always kind of want your parents' approval, so I'm like, can you read this before we let anybody else read it? And that meant a lot to me that she took the time to go through it and give honest feedback, because it was really intimate.
And something I'd like to add, not with Alexis, but with another teenage foster daughter that we had. After we had her, she had come from the agency and there was nothing wrong, right? Whatever, there's nothing wrong. But then we found out that she was a cutter, a prostitute since she was 14 and she was 16. She had been squatting. So all the worst of the worst that you would hear about living in Flint, Michigan, in a house that nobody lived in. And the worst thing I think about as being a parent is the things that you think you know, but you don't know really what's going on. And how do you get your child to open up to you? And so Kim and I came up with, and this was before Alexis, but we came up with something called a grace night. And we both agreed that no matter what this daughter said to us, there was going to be no consequences. And we both agreed that knowing what was going on was better than not knowing. And Jude had been with us probably 4 months at that point. And this is when all this stuff came out. And so she's like, really, I'm not going to get in trouble. You're not going to ground me. And we're like, no, we want you to tell us everything. And so she shared all the stuff that had been going on in her life. And since then, we've had parents of, who aren't foster parents use that with their own children. But you got to be really good at, you cannot take any action. You cannot have any kind of consequence if you're going to allow your child to share that kind of stuff with you, the real stuff.
That's huge. I mean, I think all of us in this world can do a better job of listening without judgment. And I think that's super huge with teenagers. I have teenagers and their friends, and it just has to be, like if they're sharing, let them keep talking because it's a super important thing to be hearing and to be honored for them to share that with you. Like I always feel like I'm honored that they felt safe enough to talk to me about some of those things. So let's just kind of do like a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. So the one question I have is, what resources would have helped you in your journey, either as a parent or as a young person? Sean and Stephanie and Christopher, you guys want to jump into that one first?
Oh gosh, doing this for 7-8 years, I now know of a lot of them, but when we were new foster parents, we had no idea, you get a foster child, okay, you got to put them in therapy, but there's so many different forms, there's specific trauma therapists, which some children need. Gosh, there's a foster parent association groups around us that, we don't have one. I'm actually currently in the process of trying to start that because as a foster parent, sometimes, we have friends, they don't understand, if you vent a little bit, the first response is, why do you do this then? No, I'm just venting because I'm frustrated in the moment. So it's nice to have other foster parents to talk to, which for us, I think that's a big resource, for the parents, is just having somebody else that's in a similar situation, just wanting to talk about it. I'm trying to think what other resources. Yeah, for us, it was really just having a community that was really familiar with what we were going through and what we were doing and why we were doing it.
Gotcha. Raquel and Sid, any resources?
I think Miss Stewart was the resource. Like she was like declarated in all of these organizations. When she came on, it was like, you in the community, what we doing community service. Like I wouldn't even say like my like community service or like me having like this like need to like want to share my story and give back. Like I kind of owe that to Miss Stewart. Like she was like one of the first people who encouraged me to speak up, and so I feel like she was the resource. Like I feel like that she put me in places and situations, and all I had to do was just kind of seal the deal, like show who my true self was. And like it's like, I'm gonna get you the interview. Now you got the interview, now you have to go in there and get the job, and I kind of feel like that came with like organizations introducing me to other women who were like-minded or like in business and entrepreneurship, who are a part of other Black, like she's a part of a sorority. Like I just feel like yeah, she was the resource. Like she had the juice basically, and knew how to put like the people who are around us. Like it just wasn't like, oh, I'm here. It was like she put you in spaces so that you can prosper and be great. And it was just kind of up to you whether or not you wanted to be great or not.
Yeah, I think, I'm not from California. I moved here, I had limited funds and resources, but I think whatever you have in your toolkit, whatever you have in your purse, like an old grandmama, if you got some lotion, pass it out. If you got a bottle of water, get some cups and, pass out whatever you have. I think people underestimate, that you need a lot to do a lot, and you don't. Whatever you have in your hands, is what you have, and start there. But I think as a practitioner now, I think about training. I think trauma-informed training, honestly, as much as we love these young people, We can still make mistakes. We can be sources of re-traumatization. And I think trauma-informed training or support for foster parents, and I'm venturing into becoming a foster parent. So Kim and Brian, I may be reaching out to you because my experience, I want to take it further. But I think training and supportive communities that kind of you learn from other people. And it seems like Kim and Brian are veterans. So I think just having a community of other people that you can talk to so that you learn from those experiences and maybe those mistakes you don't make. But for me, I had done the work for so long, and then finally through an organization, I took a trauma-informed training. Shout out to the Right Way Foundation. And was like, wow, like you figure out, oh, that's what I've been going through, or oh, this is what it is. It's just like I wish I've had a manual before I jumped in, before Raquel pulled me in. But most of the young people that I work with pulled us in that direction. So we learned I learned as I go. But I think training is real key.
Yeah. Alexis, Kim, and Brian.
Okay. I always talk about this whenever I speak to a group that has foster parents is you have to take care of yourself because this is hard work. And so you have to do things that lift your soul up, that encourage you and energize you, and give you space to do training and connect with other foster or adoptive parents. Those are the key resources. So taking care of yourself so that you have time and energy to learn. I've learned so much through this journey. The trauma-based training was key for me. I've read lots of books. I joined an online network of people that had adopted other children to understand that the behaviors are not because, they're not bad kids. They just don't know how to communicate well. And so I learned that being a foster parent is learning a new language, and you have to translate that behavior into what they're saying, what they really need. And so it's like a whole new paradigm shift of understanding. Now nobody's ever perfect because we're humans, we're emotional, we, react, we get triggered, but we do better a little bit every day. So giving yourself grace is really important. But I just want to emphasize, yes, like Stephanie said, communities, other people that have done this before you, and just really, you have to take care of yourself because this is hard. And it's good, but it's hard.
Awesome. Alexis?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you guys have covered most of it. We talk about all these things whenever we do presentations on the importance of taking care of yourself and building up your community and building up your network, because youth are watching from you in everything that you do. Whether you're a child or you're a teenager, young adult, whatever, you're looking up to the individuals, especially the adults around you, for guidance. And the fact that Kim and Brian have really spent a lot of time and were super intentional on building up their network and their community of people that is a healthy environment for them and their children has taught me so much around who are the people that I want to surround myself with, and who are the people that are going to take me forward and challenge me and hold me accountable. And that's exactly how I built up my community and my network. And it was completely from watching them.
Awesome. I really appreciate everybody hanging in there. We went over a little bit on time, but I think the conversation was good. I hope everybody took something away and learned something new today. I appreciate our young people for sharing their experiences, because without them, I think they're super critical for us to learn and grow as we're parenting, because they don't come home with manuals ever. But if you need more resources, definitely check out our Youth Voice program that is through Fostering Media Connections. Check out Fostering Families Today online and our print publication. And then, yes, all the resources that all of our panelists have done. Alexis's book. Sid's doing a lot of great work out there. So I really appreciate all that you guys brought to this conversation today. And I hope everybody has a wonderful Thursday.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim.
Nice meeting everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart.
Love you.
I love you too.